Good morning everyone and welcome back to a brand new video of Fox Flicks on Popcross Studios. Today we are checking out Vigilants Season 1 Finale, Episode 17. In main character energy Part 2. When we last left off, Bobby had tried to cause a ruckus at one of the Vigilant battles in the country of Unitalia, but because of the efforts of Augie Knight, sorry, that felt seemed a little difficult. But his plans were thwarted, and the protection agency almost caught him. But he was able to escape with the use of some liquid biometal, and has unfortunately had all ties cut with Everett and the corporation as a whole. Now Bobby is on his own and is about to do something really big. But before that, let's see how the doubles tournament takes off.
Before the start of Day 4 of the Unitalia Vigilance Exhibition Tournament, Chanel was giddy with excitement, as she had been for much of the week. Her tournament co-organizer approached her in their temporary on-site office at the Coherent Arena in a much less enthused state. "How are you so bubbly the day after a terrorist attacked our event?" Chanel shook her head. Terrorist is a bit of an exaggeration. I mean, think about how much went right. That brilliant little Ogama flagged us that Blunt had tampered with the Fortitude chips before Blunt could do any damage with them. Nobody was seriously hurt in his escape. Our security was nearly doubled for free since the Protection Bureau thinks he might show up again. And our crowd estimates for today are still huge in spite of the attack. If he was going to try something, it couldn't really have gone much better for us. Kaya shook her head with a smirk. "Sometimes I wish I could borrow those rose-colored glasses you see everything through, but let's see if you can give me a positive spin for this. That doubles team we've been waiting on an update from, who is supposed to start today, Grant Rind and Stella Huss, they finally called in and said they're not coming."
Oh, what?
Chanel's smile did fade slightly.
On the day of the tournament? Damn it. Okay, quick, we're gonna need to find two people that can take their place.
What? They can't just not show up. They're on contract. They'll have to pay a huge fine to back out this late. They know that. And they're not massive names. There's no way they want to pay that or get the bad press that could come from backing out. Kaya gave a fake grin back. "Normally you'd be right, but they're backing out because they got invited to an interview with our old bosses for the exact hour they were supposed to have their first fight here.
God
Apparently,
dang it.
the Unitalia Invitational is talking to them about being the first round of their newly introduced Doubles League next year. My guess, our lovely ex-employers did this just to stick it to us, and they're going to front the bill for those two backing out this late just to mess with our event."
I could
Chanel
see that.
shook her head.
Damn
Well,
it.
I'd like to think they're not that petty, but they
Of course
totally
they
are. Okay, so we'll just shrink the bracket to one fewer team. It's not that big a deal. Kaya replied, "We're going to follow a terrorist attack with an announcement that there's going to be one fewer fight in one of our main events? You know what people tend to do when they get less than what they paid for and are also scared?
They get upset.
They ask for their money back and tell their friends not to come next year." Chanel smiled.
Well, I mean, there is a way around this. Give an announcement. Say, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, one of the teams for the duo bracket has backed out at the last minute. And so we will try to find a duo to replace them. But in the event of that not happening, we do have a plan in place.
Again.
Done.
Okay, you're right, so we'll find another solution. Or maybe we may not even need to find one. Maybe it'll just fall in our lap. Like all the stuff going right yesterday. Still find it incredible how you can sell a terrorist attack as things having gone right. Chanel continued, "You attract what you focus on. I focus on things going right, so things go as right as they can. Focus on solutions, and the universe will send us solutions." Suddenly, there was clapping from the entrance to their office. Carter was standing in the doorway, applauding the woman he was enamored with. "I can't believe how lucky I am that I get to date someone that thinks the way you do.
Aww.
And is also as gorgeous as you, and has as much MCE as you do." Chanel grinned. "Don't pretend like you don't also have major main character energy, hot stuff." They both bounced towards each other and...
Man, I still can't believe this woman somehow becomes Eloise Ludum. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Ludum is a crazy psychopathic bitch, and this woman is literally... Well, I can't hate her. There's nothing that she's done that makes me hate her. Oh, I mean, even with her eventually pulling the powers of the Reaper, I can't blame her for that. That's just unfortunate. She literally has no control over what powers she pulls as a channeler. Oh, a channeler. Ugh, sorry, that was a little difficult.
Kaya could not have rolled her eyes up any more at their mushiness as they kissed. But then her head darted back down, and she stared at Carter. Hey, Carter, I know you're Freya's emotional support, but didn't you mention once that she was training you as a Vigilance fighter? Did you register for any leagues? He nodded. Yes, I haven't competed in any tournaments yet, but with Freya's help I was able to qualify and register for the official American Amateur League. Chanel's eyes lit up even more than usual. Oh my gosh, Kaya, you're a genius! But we'd have to find someone for him to team up with. Kaya raised her eyebrow at Chanel. Well, registered licenses last for 7 years in the Unitalia leagues, right? Chanel's eyes dropped to the ground in thought, then back up to Kaya, then over to Carter, then back to Kaya. Her face went from grinning to looking confused, then concerned, then grinning tentatively again. I mean, it's been so long. I only ever fought in one official tournament because my powers were way too unpredictable, but... Kaya walked up and put a hand on Chanel's shoulder. But you're going to...
Oh, Chanel's going to be the partner.
Do this for me anyway, because you want me to spend the rest of the day not panicking and being at least a quarter as relaxed about everything as you are, right? She tapped Carter on the cheek with her other hand as she said, and also because it means you get to tag team with the pretty boy you're way too obsessed with, who is also weirdly obsessed with you for how little time you've known each other.
Yeah, no, I kind of knew that was going to happen.
Carter was still a little...
My brain, for some reason, was not remembering that Chanel's name is Chanel.
Confused, but turned to Chanel. Am I following correctly here? Are we fighting in the doubles tournament together? Chanel took a deep breath, then nodded enthusiastically. They kissed again, and Kaya shook her head. Okay, great. Thank you. I'm going to go make sure we can't get sued over this somehow, and make sure the other amateur doubles competitors know what's up. Kaya went down to the green room where most of the doubles fighters were chatting or prepping.
Kaya was the one my brain was mistaken for Chanel.
Kaya did the circuit of informing them all, and none seemed bothered by the change. The only people who cared were a doubles team who'd come under the same agent as Freya Sparks and some of the other biggest names at the event.
Oh,
this team was Fess Manara and Lance Baugh. Lance responded to the news first. Seriously, Grant is flaking on fighting us again? He turned to Fess. I think your ex is just scared of you at this point. Fess grinned. I was really looking forward to finally beating him, but I bet it's actually because he's just scared my new man can easily outdo him when it comes to manifesting a win. She kissed him on the cheek. It's no big deal. Whoever else you've got to fight is fine with us. She kissed him on the cheek again as Kaya walked away. I swear, I have to deal with one more mushy couple today. As soon as she walked out of the window, she nearly bumped into Bayou Night competitor Camille Hadzia, kissing her girlfriend Rosie. They stopped kissing and blushed, seeing Kaya looking at them, but she just kept on walking. Right. You attract what you focus on. Very funny, universe.
That is actually incredibly funny. One mushy couple to another mushy couple to another mushy teen couple.
How about this? I'm focusing on the final event this week being the most exciting and memorable fight in Vigilance history.
Ooh.
How about that, universe?
Phrasing.
When the Amateur Doubles League tournament kicked off that day, it quickly became the newest obsession of event patrons. Freya Sparks was technically making her way through a singles bracket in another arena of the event at the same time, but much of this crowd had just watched her do that in the Unitalia Invitational. They'd all be eagerly watching when it came to her doubles match on the last day, but for now, the best show was being put on by the doubles teams. It was the first majorly televised doubles event in years, and the fighters all seemed aligned in wanting to put on a good show. Especially Fess and Lance. Similar to one of the abilities Bobby Blunt illegally possessed through his augmented arm, Fess could create...
Oh, that's Lance over there, okay.
...create gold hard-light constructs to fight with. Lance didn't have much in the way of flashy powers, just C-ranked agility and D-ranked strength and speed, but he and Fess had become an incredible pairing, using their skills in unison. Fess would stay back for the most part and let Lance go in for the attacks. She'd make walls and barriers to block the hits from their opponents from hitting Lance, so he'd never have to watch his own back when he went for strikes. They also changed their callouts before every fight with random words like pickle, potato, golf, for when Lance wanted platforms for him to leap off of in specific places around him. People were in awe of Lance's ability to stay in the fight against opponents with powers far exceeding his own, and of Fess's ability to always anticipate what opponents were going to try and hit Lance with next.
A lot of skill.
Often they'd catch on and try to go for an attack on Fess to take out Lance's defense, but they'd quickly then be faced with how well Fess could handle her own, while also learning why turning their backs on Lance was a bad idea. They made it to the semifinals and were the favorites to win it all. despite what an unexpected splash Carter and Chanel had been making as last-minute additions. In a way, they had similar abilities to each other, in that they each had access to a wide range of powers. Carter had a deck of 36 cards called the Shakti K card, and each one, when stuck to his body, could activate a different ability. Carter had trained enough that he could use 2 at once quite skillfully without getting drained of energy too quickly. He brought the full deck into the fight, but waited on what to use until Chanel activated her abilities.
Ooh,
While
good thinking.
official Vigilance records refused to describe her powers this way, Chanel could channel the abilities of different beings from across time, space, and dimensions. The problem was she couldn't pick what powers she got. She had at least learned that using different hand symbols, called mudras, during her channeling could prompt different types of abilities. Creation, power, heal.
Weirdly enough, I imagine Holland was doing like the Naruto hand jutsu things.
Healing, energy, and so on. Even still, with that category, it would be very random how powerful the abilities she got were. Carter had also kept up his training much more over the last few years, especially since Freya started training him, so he took the lead in most fights. But Chanel did prove to get back into the swing of fighting pretty quickly. By the time it came down to her and Carter versus Fess and Lance in the semi-finals, she and Carter were feeling as though they'd been a doubles team for years. As that match began, Chanel channeled a new set of abilities, using the Energy Mudra in the hopes of getting a power that could counter Fess's light manifestations.
Here we go.
What she got didn't allow her to control nearly as much energy as Fess, but was still very useful. The fight started, Chanel finished her channeling, and Carter asked, "Alright, what have you got?" In one hand, she created a glowing purple ball of light with a ring around it, almost looking like a planet. It looks like really hot energy balls that I can use as projectiles, and she held out a hand to a boulder on the edge of the field, then raised it slowly. It shakily lifted off the ground to float into the air. Mild telekinesis feels like maybe 5 or 6 times my body weight is my max. Carter grinned and whipped out 2 cards.
Okay.
That's pretty good, I'd say. I've got some useful support for that, too. He slapped a card onto each forearm. Both sent surges of light through his body. One didn't have any obvious effect after that, but the other made his skin shift into a green, leathery material with crystal armor and blades popping off different parts of him.
That's a classic.
I'm extra durable like this, so toss me around with that telekinesis all you want. Lance leapt into the air almost on his opponent and called out a seemingly random word. Trumpet. A light barrier appeared just under his feet, and he leapt off it as if he were trying to pass Carter on his way to Chanel. But he flipped and another wall appeared above him. He kicked off it, diving headfirst towards Carter. He swung his fist for Carter's head, but then
that actually kind of
froze in midair. He glanced over at Chanel, who had her hand raised towards him. She'd stopped him, levitating him in place. He nodded. Huh, that could be a problem for me. Fess, Gumbo. Carter smacked Lance with a backhand and sent him spinning through the air to his left. Fess made a giant baseball mitt that caught him and set him down, as she then sprinted towards Carter. The crowd hadn't seen her run full tilt into a battle this early, so they started to cheer excitedly. She made 3 battering rams on Carter and Chanel's right sides. She swung them towards both fighters. They both dove and dodged around them as Chanel yelled out, "Looks like I can't use my telekinesis on her light construct. And look out behind you!" Carter had avoided all the rams, but turned just in time to see Lance's knee headed for his face. Chanel raised her hand to stop him, but before she could, Fess turned the battering rams back on her and hit Chanel in the stomach, making her flop back to the ground. Carter felt it too, as in doubles matches, the Fortitude fields of partners were connected. Lance's hit went through next, kneeing Carter in the face, and even with his enhanced durability, it still hurt. Lance took the opportunity with Chanel down to double back and swing a flurry of kicks at Carter. The first 5 hit and had him stumbling backwards, until he finally caught one and squeezed, activating his other card. A ball of ice formed around Lance's foot. Carter dropped the now much heavier limb to the ground, swearing he could hear the boisterous cheering of Agama from somewhere in the crowd. Carter was about to go for a swing of his own when a gold platform appeared under him and he was catapulted into the air by Fess. He spiraled, and about 30 feet up, he stopped, held in place by Chanel. She tried to focus on bringing him back down, but Fess was swinging more battering rams at her, and Lance was running towards her. Carter thrust his hands towards Lance and fired basketball-sized clumps of ice towards him. Lance saw them coming and flipped and dodged around them. But then Carter called out, "Here are some constructs of your own, gorgeous. Go nuts." She lowered Carter most of the way down, then dropped him so she could focus her levitation on Lance and toss him into the wall near Carter. He landed feet first against it, sprang off, and started brawling with Carter again. Chanel stuck out her arms and levitated the ice balls, easily lifting them all at once and spinning them through the air, like Fess had been doing with the Rams. She sent them two at a time from different angles towards her enemy, who made barriers to block them. But Chanel would just spin them around and try to hit her from another different angle.
Keep it up!
Shot off one of the glowing purple light orbs from her hand to see what it may do, and it managed to crack one of Fess's barriers. But with Chanel so focused on firing the orb and controlling the ice, she didn't notice that Fess had aimed one hand towards Lance. She yelled out,
"Oh no!
Gamble!" Chanel looked over just as Lance kicked off Carter into the air towards Chanel. She reached out her hand to levitate him, but
I don't know which team to root for.
Fess made a gold light box around him and moved it with him inside. Chanel couldn't stop the construct, so she tried to thrust her ice balls at Fess to stop her. Unfortunately, that split her focus too much, and when the box got close and opened up, she was unable to push Lance away in time as he hammered his foot into her forehead, sending her spinning back through the air.
Ow.
Carter came over to help soon after, but for the multi-powered couple, that was the beginning of the end. Fess and Lance learned fast on top of their half year of training and fighting together, and they were able to best Carter and Chanel. That semifinal match went to them. They even went on to win the whole amateur doubles branch of the tournament. Carter and Chanel were nothing but happy for them, and made sure to say so in person after the finals were won.
Still happy
In the
for them.
aftermath of that battle, Chanel was nothing but grateful that her ex-employers had tried to throw a wrench into their tournament plans. It meant that Chanel had gotten to live out an old dream and remember why she enjoyed event organizing more than competing, and Carter got to finally use the training Freya had put him through in a proper match. Plus, it helped him realize that he may want to try more doubles fights. It added a nice layer of variety and excitement to the sport.
That is true.
Better still, it had calmed Kaya down to see the crowd's excitement about the amateur doubles bracket, despite the mishap that morning. For the next few days, everything seemed to run perfectly smoothly, and the minor audience drop-off they'd seen after Bobby Blunt's attack had picked back up. People loved the Bi-Unite doubles match, which ended up being Agama and Camille versus Junko and Akaru Inoue.
Ooh.
Astoundingly, the Inoue twins finally managed to take a win against Augie. It turns out they'd been training in secret for a while together, just in case they ended up in a situation where they got to team up against Augie, and it paid off. As is to be expected, nobody cheered for their victory more than Augie. He had fought to win, but was also a very supportive friend. Plus,
he's a great
regardless
friend.
of who won, he was just ecstatic that the whole crowd, both at the event and watching from home, got to see how far superior the naturally bonded Bi-Unite competitors had been. Junko and Akaru were both interviewed after the match, and together they told the story of how Augie had taught them to make their natural bonds after they'd first tried using bond bands, and had seen firsthand how much better their connections to the creatures were without the expensive devices. Junko even willingly said how skeptical she'd been of Augie's methods, and then was surprisingly complimentary of him as they both told the story. Camille was also just excited to have done so well in the tournament, and her friends too were incredibly excited for her. They ended up going to dinner that night with Augie, Junko, Akaru, and their dads. By the time the final event was arriving, everyone was in incredibly high spirits. The energy in the green room was electric, as many of the tournament participants sat around just to get the pre-game interactions between the two teams. Freya Sparks and Wallop Beaton versus Chadwick Geigar and Flamtatius Staphos.
Oh yeah, here we go.
An hour before the match, they were getting into some playful banter, with Geigar trying to get it going the most.
Pretty good in the singles bracket, Sparks. Can't say I'm surprised you took first place, but can't help but notice you were playing it a little safe. Looking a little old school defensive out there. You're not getting chicken on us, are you?
She crossed her arms. Just saving my best for the big match. Didn't want to burn my best ideas in the warm-up. Not that it really matters much. Wallop beat you here and in the Invitational, so I might be able to relax on the sidelines for most of this fight and just watch him handle you again. Flamtatius clapped his hands together. Oh, you beautiful, stylish little minx, I dare you to underestimate Chunky and the staff more.
I did not agree to that nickname.
I'd have so much more Smash Mouth for you, but I can't get over
Chunky and the staff?
how much I love your outfits lately, and when Chunky and the staff beat you, I demand that you design something for both of us to wear. No matter what it looks like, I will convince Chunky to wear it.
Ugh, I hate that you're probably right about that. Also, Smash Mouth and Trash Talk ain't the same thing, Flam.
Oh,
Wallop
not
was
even.
bouncing on his
Still.
tail to warm it up, as he said. You sounded pretty confident there for a guy that went down in the first round of the Invitational Tournament, Flammy Boy. Again, I want to do a witty retort, but you calling me Flammy Boy in your cartoon kangaroo voice is too much I can't even think. I'd let your dingo eat my baby anytime. Freya made a grossed out face.
Okay.
Oh, what does that even mean? Well,
I have no idea.
replied, "You're a real weird guy, Flammy. Kinda like it, but you know that's a real thing that happened, yeah? Dingo eating a lady's baby? Probably not something you should joke about." Chadwick just shook his head.
Your pre-match banter better not be a representation of how you're gonna fight out there, Flam.
Soon after, Carter walked up and
Trashy.
tapped Freya's shoulder. "So sorry to bother you, but Freya, I think Officer Fuego would like a word with you before the match." Freya turned to see Trayton standing at attention in the doorway. As she started walking over, she heard Flamtatious say, yes, officer, whatever you say, officer."
Oh my
She smiled at
god.
Trayton and they went out around the corner. "Do you have a security update for me, officer?" She said.
Weirdly enough, my family and I watched a show called The Rookie, and in one of the episodes, I can't remember which one, they introduced some garage band singer who literally made a song about the main character cop. Like, if y'all don't know what it is, just look it up. I couldn't tell you what it is, but look up, like, The Rookie cop song. Okay, there's something there that is gonna make y'all laugh.
Cheekily.
Oops.
"No, just wanted to wish you good luck." He kissed her. He was going to pull away quickly, but she pulled him in for a longer one. She was feeling so energized and excited in that moment for so many reasons, but when she pulled back, both she and Trayton nearly jumped out of their skin as they saw Agama and his Bayou Knight standing patiently staring up at them.
Jesus!
Trayton stammered, Agama, what are you doing here?
Just wait until you two have kids, and we'll be like that constantly.
What are you doing here?" "I just wanted to let you know, Officer Fuego, that I did a round of the maintenance rooms upstairs and investigated all the bathrooms. Bobby Blunt is nowhere to be found." Trayton chuckled. "That's good initiative, Agama, but don't worry, I have officers on constant search of the premises for him. He's not here, so you can just go enjoy the finals. Ms. Sparks and her ally are going to put on quite the show for everyone." Before Freya could answer, Agama said, "You call your girlfriend Ms. Sparks?" "Well, we're not, I mean, maybe
Are they
we
dating or what?"
Well, he looked to Freya, unsure of what to say in response to the term girlfriend being tossed around. "What my boyfriend here means is..."
It's official.
Yeah, sometimes he does call me that. It's a grown-up thing. You'll get it when you're older." He tilted his head.
He's only 13.
"I'm gonna go call Junko Ms. Inoue and see how she feels about that. Thanks, bye."
Oh!
He wandered off and they both had a good laugh.
Yeah, if y'all don't remember back in, like, Junko's episode, he said, like, offhandedly, and he told that him and her are one day gonna get married. He like, shoved him and then flew off.
Or kissing one more time, then parting ways for the big match, which would be even bigger than either of them could have expected. The stadium was as packed as it could be when Freya and Wallop stepped out onto the opposite side of the field from Chadwick and Flamtatious. All of the fighters who'd participated in prior events had front row seats, and Augie was next to Junko and Akaru, just behind Freya. All three kids were merged with their Bayou Knights so their creatures could watch the match with them. Chanel and Kaya were in their office, with Carter joining them, staring down excitedly, enjoying the glee their hard work had brought to this crowd. The announcer was getting the crowd revved up even more just before the bell rang to begin. Flamtatious was enthusiastically waving, and as he did, Chadwick quietly interrupted him.
"Hey, Flam, all seriousness,
He held out his fist and rolled his eyes a little as he said,
let's show these folks what Chunky and the staff can do, yeah?"
Hey, he's into the
Flamtatious
name.
bounced up and down and ignored the fist to give Chadwick a big hug. Then they both readied up. The countdown began. But as it did, the crowd's attention was drawn to the air above the arena. There was the sound of jets flying, and in the sky far above, there seemed to be 5 streams of smoke coming straight down towards the arena. The countdown stopped as Protection Bureau officers placed on the roof yelled out to fire. Sniper shots rang out at the approaching targets, but didn't seem to slow them down at all. 4 machines crashed down onto the rooftop. Freya was far from them in the arena, but at a distance, they resembled the machine that had latched onto Bobby Blunt a few days before.
Oh, crap.
As that thought crossed her mind,
time.
the 5th projectile crashed down right on top of the translucent barrier over the arena. A second after hitting, the barrier deteriorated from where he'd hit, and the figure crashed down into the middle of the stadium, between the 4 fighters. When the dust around him cleared, it was evident to everyone that Bobby Blunt had entered the arena.
Oh, crap.
Attached to both of his arms was one of those same giant mechanical limbs. He held one of the thumbs of his writhing mechanical hands towards his mouth. He spoke, and the words rang out through the speaker systems of the stadium. "Please, ladies and gentlemen, remain in your seats. That is if you don't want this place and everyone in it getting blown sky high." The 4 machines on the building all had glowing red spheres emerge from the tops of them and start sparking and humming. The protection officers on the roof tried to get close, but when they were within arm's reach and tried to grab for the device, their hands struck barriers and they seemed to get a nasty electric shock from them. "I see anyone heading for the exits, any officers taking a shot at me, or anyone trying to get cute with my little speakers up there, I detonate them. And we can all give Unitalia the biggest and bloodiest fireworks show of its existence, so sit down." Everyone anxiously took their seats, except of course for the fighters in the arena, who were all itching to charge Bobby.
And also don't have
risk blowing up the place. "Now, don't worry, folks. I ain't here to ruin your big final fiesta. In fact, old Bobby Blunt is gonna make it even better, while doing a bit of shameless marketing for these bad boys." He pounded his mechanical fists together and a blue shockwave burst out, hitting the 4 fighters in the arena so hard they all slid back a few feet across the ground. "You see, I was building these beautiful biomechs for someone else, but now it seems they're up for sale to the highest bidder. Instead of a 2v2 match, we're gonna do a little 4-on-1. Everybody out there can watch in awe as a worthless, delusional nobody like me manages to use this tech to take out 4 of the biggest fighters alive. See, these pretty arms of mine are powered by the fresh squeezed juices of Unitalia's precious little critters, Bionites, to give anybody who wants some powers, even better than the best Vigilants out there." In the crowd, Akaru and Junko both saw Augie lean forward with a furious expression they'd never seen on him before.
He's never been pissed.
"I'm gonna prove just how good this tech is by taking these 4 out, walking out of here scot-free, then whoever's most impressed out there can call up old Bobby Blunt and make your purchase. Now what are we waiting for?" he said, leering specifically at Freya now. "Ring that freaking bell." Trayton and the officers started desperately trying to come up with a plan, and Chanel knew she had to help stop this. But for now, there didn't seem to be any choice. The bell was rung, and the fight began. Freya and Wallop ran towards Blunt together. Wallop leapt ahead, landing on his tail, aimed his feet up, and Freya landed with her feet on his. They both sprung their legs out, sending her rocketing into the air above Blunt. She activated her yellow combat field. Quite certain electricity wouldn't do much after what she saw last time, but it could at least be a distraction. As she fired a bolt of electricity, Blunt held one hand up and blocked it. Then, without even looking, swung his other hand out and caught Wallop's foot as he'd flung himself across the ground towards Blunt for a kick. Wallop swung his tail next, but a smaller mechanical hand popped out of Blunt's arm and caught the tail too. "Oh, that's a weird little baby hand. I don't like that." A wave of green electric.
I can see why he ended up having to call in the powers of the Reaper, again, still unknowingly. This is definitely worthy of the Reaper.
He suddenly shot through the arm into Wallop, who cried out in pain. Freya continued to fall towards Blunt and swung her fist for his head, but part of the metal from his arm crept up his neck and made half a helmet to block the punch. Freya's knuckles cracked against him and knocked his head back, but he then headbutted her and she was flung surprisingly far back across the arena. Without turning, a lens on the back of one of Blunt's arms directed him to a massive fist headed towards him. Gygar was going straight in for a shot with his signature move, the triple aura punch. 2 glowing green fists appeared over his own, and he thrust it full tilt toward Blunt's spine. Bobby rapidly tossed Wallop into the air above him.
Hey, hold on. I just want to pause real quick to point out Wallop's shoes. He has a W and a B on the sole. That's awesome. Wallop beaten.
Spun around and swung his own biomech fist back at Gygar. Their fists hit and stopped each other dead in their tracks. But Gygar's wasn't finished. The second and third fist slammed into Blunt's a second after the first hit and created a massive shockwave. Unfortunately, Blunt held in place, and Gygar was sent flying back from the blow.
Oh, crap.
Blunt then looked back up to see Wallop headed down for him foot first. He swung an arm up and swatted him out of the way.
but wasn't ready for the fact that right behind him had been Flamtatious. His main ability was to manifest bars in the air to fling himself off of, or
Like
use
an
his
acrobat.
weapons, so he'd use those to get himself high above Wallop as a second surprise attack. Flamtatious smashed his foot down into Blunt's nose before he was able to get his mech in
You
place
need
to
some
protect
combo
him.
moves.
His nose had already been hurt by Die Inaway days earlier, so that really stung. But it also didn't start bleeding despite the strike. Flamtatious stayed on top of Blunt and created a bar between some of the tech and Bobby's body. He pried as hard as he could trying to get it off, but it was no use. A huge metal cleaver suddenly sprang out of one of Bobby's arms and he swung at
Whoa!
Flam. Flam flipped backwards off Blunt but was still struck across the side. He flopped through the air and a stream of blood followed him. He hit the ground hard and grabbed his side, seeing that he had been cut quite badly.
Crap.
He tapped his neck and the fortitude chip was still there. Oh, I'm sorry, everybody. Did I forget to mention that I upped the stakes a little bit?
Oh, he deactivated the chips.
See, I got a fortitude chip on built into my mechs, but I made sure to deactivate all of yours before jumping on in here with yous. The crowd muttered in fear. Flamtatious got up without
This isn't
help,
good.
clearly hurt, but able to fight through it. Still, all the fighters now realized they couldn't go in as carelessly as they might when they knew they couldn't take real damage.
They're gonna die.
Freya and Wallop made another
there's a
move for
chance.
Blunt, while Chanel, Carter, and Kaya were running around trying to provide whatever help they could to the Protection Bureau. Chanel found Trayton doling out orders. He was trying to hide it, but Chanel could tell from the subtleties of his expression that he was terrified.
Oh,
Get
well, no
every
shit.
teleportation officer in the country on the line, get a scan of those devices, and find out if anyone can port through their barriers. The second we get them off-site, everyone fire on Blunt, but not a second before then. Trayton! Chanel tried to grab him, but he kept walking. I'm sorry, not now, sis, I need to... She jumped in front of him. We're going to fix this, and I'm sure you are, but don't worry about her. She gestured back into the arena. It's Freya Sparks. She can handle herself, you know that. He took a deep breath. You're right.
Okay.
Thank you, but I really do have to go. She nodded with a semi-confident grin. She and Kaya walked closer to the arena and looked up to one of the devices perched on the roof. It could have been a bluff that Blunt would blow everyone up, but she doubted it. Plus,
Of course
if
not.
he had a fortitude field chip on while nobody else did, he could possibly even survive. Chanel stared up at them, hoping something would come to her. Someone in the world has to have a power that could take all four of those out at once, right? Kaya thought for a moment, then
Reebok.
said,
It's time.
does it have to be someone from our world? Back in the arena, Wallop and Flamtatious were flinging themselves around Blunt, with Flam making bars for himself and Wallop in the air.
There you go.
Freya
Team
then
up.
came running, staying low to the ground as Bobby was looking up. But again, his biomech lenses spotted her. A minigun, like the one she'd faced days earlier, sprung out of his shoulder and started firing at her while he was trying to swat Flam and Wallop. Freya
Resistance
activated
field.
her resistance field, so the bullets were slowed to nearly a 30th their usual speed. But even
That's
that
still
was
pretty
enough to
damn
hurt.
fast.
Still, she wanted to land her hit, so she kept running right through them, getting pelted by the metal. Blunt realized she wasn't stopping and turned his full attention to her. He stopped firing bullets and aimed his other hand. Let's see how you like feeling worthless, Sparks. The full hand of the mech shot off him towards her and claws expanded out of it.
Oh, crap.
She tried leaping over it, but her resistance field didn't slow it down at all as it had with the bullets. It hit her right in the stomach, pinned her back to the ground, and the claws dug into the dirt. She tried shoving it off, but every
She's
time
pinned.
she moved, it gripped tighter, squeezing her ribs into the ground. Blunt was satisfied with that move, but then Flamtatious and Wallop landed down in front of him.
Okay, so before I thought that was Lance, I do actually still think it is possibly Flamtatious. It's just hard to tell because we haven't seen either of them.
He was about to point his arms towards them, but then was alerted to Gygar storming up behind him. He turned, shifting his arm into a minigun again to fire, but he was too slow this time. Gygar grabbed the arm and aimed it away, firing at the wall of the arena. He then snagged the other biomech shoulder in his other hand, shoved Blunt to his knees, and with all his might pulled in opposite directions.
Yes.
Metal
Yes.
stretched and clanked as Blunt screamed out in pain. Wallop sprang forward and smacked Blunt in the head with his tail, and Flam used one of his poles as a bat and whacked Blunt in the stomach.
Keep
He
it up!
choked out in pain and grunted. Fine. Maybe 4-on-1 is a bit much, huh? Let's even the odds. There was a fast slice sound, and a spray of blood struck the ground
Oh, no.
behind Gygar. He choked as he looked down and saw a sword had sprung out of Blunt's biomech shoulder blade and stabbed straight through Chadwick's stomach.
Chad!
Blunt grinned eagerly
No!
as the crowd cried out, and Flam screamed furiously. But then Blunt realized Gygar hadn't stopped pulling.
Ho ho!
Boy, you think a little flesh wound is gonna stop me, freak?
Gygar gave
Keep it up,
one
Chad.
more thrust of his arms to each side and tore one of Blunt's biomech arms off, hurling it across the arena and flinging the rest of his body into the opposite wall. The blade came out of Gygar as Blunt was hurled away. Gygar then fell back to the ground, wheezing in pain, holding his stomach.
Holy crap.
Wallop sprang over to Blunt to keep hammering him with kicks while he was down, but still having one biomech arm meant he was far from out of this fight. Flame
yet.
ran over and grabbed one of Gygar's massive hands in his. "Don't you dare die on me, I swear I'll never find a doubles partner I photograph as well with Chadwick." He chuckled.
I thought I was junky when we were in a match. And I ain't dying. Might not be much help now, though.
Before Flamtatious could say anything else,
Definitely
Wallop
being
was
taken
hurled
out.
right into him, and the two rolled back away from Gygar. Blunt was hobbling back across the arena, pointing his now human arm towards his fallen biomech. It started crawling back towards him.
So that must have been the left arm that was ripped off, considering that his right arm had been replaced up to the elbow with proper machinery.
All that work for nothing, big guy. You may all work pretty well together, but there ain't no partner like my biomechs. Wrong, a voice shouted from the front row of the crowd. Despite all the noise in the stadium, it cut right through to Blunt, who stopped and turned towards it. Agama was standing up on the edge of the wall to the arena.
Agama!
I bet those things still suck compared to having a real natural Bionite as a partner. Blunt suddenly snapped his fingers. Instead of the severed biomech coming back towards him, it turned into a marching turret and started firing and charging at Wallop and Flamtatious. They both dodged around it while making sure it didn't fire up into the crowd. That's a very interesting theory you got there, you little rat. You want to put your money where your unnaturally big mouth is, then come on down. Junko and Akaru tried to grab him, but Augie leapt off the wall.
Augie, no,
Cordero
don't!
was bonded to him and converted his arm into a burly, ice-spewing golden limb.
You crazy
he
bastard!
shot the ice beneath him to make a slide for him to slip down on his feet into the arena towards Blunt. Dai and Noah both ran to the front of the seating area. Agama, no! Get out of there now, please! Dai was bonded with Onatala and was stepping up onto the wall, but Blunt saw him. Pops, this scrap is invite only.
No.
Anyone else comes in here, and I blow us all to kingdom come. Dai stopped with his lips trembling in fury, and the crowd pulled him back into the stands.
This isn't
There
good.
was nothing he could do. Augie marched towards Blunt confidently. You know, kid, I'll give it to you. You're probably the bravest and stupidest little rat I ever did come across. Augie didn't seem affected by the words at all as he said, I know there's a good person in you somewhere, Mr. Blunt, because there is in everybody.
Not in this time,
but
lifeline.
I don't think I have time to try and find it today. His walk turned into a sprint as he ran towards Blunt. Bobby shifted his arm into a minigun and started to fire. Noah and Dai both cried out in terror, but Augie stuck his palm forward and made a body-sized ice wall in front of him, continuing to run. The bullets were blasting chunks out of it, but not getting through fast. The wall of ice got closer and closer. Blunt changed tactics and punched his fist into the ground. Another blue shockwave burst from it across the ground towards Augie's ice wall. The bottom was smashed backwards, but Augie quickly stepped onto it and used it being flipped under him to fling him up into the air. He shot a beam of ice at Blunt from the sky. Bobby stuck his arm forward and sprayed a jet of fire at the ice. Luckily, he hadn't thought that through. The ice melted and splashed into his face, making him stumble back. Augie landed in front of him and shot as much ice as he could onto Blunt's biomech arm. It coated over completely and almost made Blunt fall sideways from the weight. He managed to crack through the ice quickly, but it was blocking his weapons for the moment. Augie swung his Bionite-enhanced fist right into Blunt's head and sent him flopping onto his back in the dirt. The crowd cheered excitedly for the first time since Blunt had entered, and that just made him more furious. Augie leapt towards Blunt to land on him, but Bobby swung his ice-coated fist and smacked Augie aside, sending him rolling across the field. Blunt's arm suddenly shrunk in on itself, making all the ice crack off it, and he shook it free. By the time he looked back to Agama, though, the boy had leapt up and ran over to Freya. This is gonna be a little cold, Ms. Sparks. He froze the metal claw gripping her. Blunt aimed his gun again, but Augie made another ice wall protecting him and Freya. She pushed up, and the ice was keeping the metal hand from squeezing her any tighter. She activated her yellow combat field, thrust both arms forth, and hurled the claw into the air off her. Again, the crowd cheered. Freya quickly said, Thank you, Agama. I'm guessing I couldn't convince you to run no matter what I said, right? Right. I
No.
told you we were going to fight together someday. Plus, no offense, but it seems like you need me. She nodded. Yep, you might be right about that. Quick, get on my back. I can handle the bullets, you freeze his tech again. Augie didn't hesitate,
Teamwork.
he just jumped on her back. She leapt out from behind the ice wall and switched to her resistance field. Blunt kept firing right at her, but again, the bullets were slowed enough that they weren't breaking skin. She ran towards him while Augie fired an ice beam. It was slowed inside her field, but once it got past Freya, it shot out full force, starting to coat over Blunt's arm again. He turned it and shield-like plating popped out, then started heating up, melting the ice before too much stuck to it. Freya then said, "Take a flight, kid." She put her hands under his feet and thrust him upwards. He flipped up above Bobby and continued shooting his ice beam.
Come
Blunt
on!
aimed his shield to follow, but Freya ducked under the arm and punched as hard as she could into Blunt's jaw. Some tech shifted up to protect him, but not enough. He was clearly hurt and still sent stumbling backwards. Meanwhile, Chanel had her eyes closed with a vortex of wind spinning around her, back in her and Kaya's office. Kaya and Carter were watching, desperately hoping this would work. Carter wanted to say something encouraging, but
it's time for the
Chanel
repo.
needed to focus. All right, universe, spirit guides, higher self, God, source, whoever is listening, whatever you call yourself, please send me the most incredible power possible. Even I don't know what I need, but it has to be able to take out 4 guarded, dangerous explosives before Bobby Blunt can react. She took a deep breath, eyes still closed. She made herself feel into the future, to a time when the solution had come to her and she had saved the lives of everyone in the arena. She felt the overwhelming joy and relief as if the solution had already come. She didn't know what the solution looked like, but she knew she could have it. Finally, she made her hands shift from every single mudra she knew, then stopped on power, needing that one the most.
Here we go.
Suddenly, purple smoke exploded around her, filling the room. She breathed rapidly. Oh my, whatever this is, it feels like so much more than I've ever channeled before.
It is.
Manifesting into the air above her appeared a red ring covered in runes, then a purple one, then a yellow one.
There
They
it is.
descended and floated around her head.
The
Her
repo.
body hovered up off the ground, and black armor coated over her torso and legs. Carter and Kaya just looked in shock
And of course, by the way, that is the original Reaper.
through the smoke.
The one that was killed fighting Tulsa.
Carter asked, What is that?" Chanel's hands went from
the
shaking
Reaper.
to being as steady as could be, as she said, "I don't know, but it's definitely powerful." She suddenly burst out the window so fast Carter and Kaya couldn't even turn around before Chanel flew right at the first explosive. Everything seemed to be moving in slow motion around her as she stuck her hand effortlessly through the barrier protecting the device. In a fraction of a second, she'd grabbed it, flown to the next, then the next, and the next. She had all 4 in her arms before Blunt even turned his head up. By the time he saw her, she was soaring straight up into the air with all 4 bombs. "Hey, I told you what happens if you try to mess with those." He flicked his thumb and the bombs instantly went off in Chanel's arms. Luckily, she had flown miles into the air by that point. The crowd saw and heard the massive explosion. The clouds far above parted in a shockwave around it. But down in the stadium, they felt little more than a slight wave of heat. Kaya and Carter stared up in horror, thinking Chanel had just been eviscerated. Meanwhile, Blunt was so distracted by the failure of his explosions that he didn't see Freya and Augie coming. Freya pounded him in the side of the head, sending him spinning towards Augie, who punched him right back the other way.
Ping pong!
Together, with an icy and sparking fist swinging right next to each other, they punched him right in the face, sending him soaring into the arena wall. Augie froze him right against the wall and ran over to his other biomech arm, still being handled by Flam and Wallop, and froze it in a massive ball of ice. With the explosives now gone, all the other Vigilance competitors, as well as every Protection Bureau officer, leapt into the arena and marched towards Blunt. Finally,
Get him!
Falling out of the sky from the explosion, came Chanel. She spun her body around before hitting the ground and hovered an inch above it, sending a wave of dirt away from her as she halted her fall. Whatever this incredible power she'd channeled was, it had kept her completely unharmed by the explosion. The purple smoke billowing off her formed into the shape of a scythe hovering behind her, and to Bobby, it looked like he was staring into the face of the Grim Reaper.
Technically,
Blunt looked
he was.
across the arena and up to the crowd. He could get his arm free, but he knew he was finished. "Well, Ma, at least I didn't snitch on nobody, right?" he muttered. He then yelled up to the audience. "Well, folks, I hope some of yous was at least impressed with the show. And the least I can do now is let it go out with a bang." Beneath the ice,
he's
he
a
melted
bomb.
enough room for him to twitch his thumb one last time. Luckily, Fesminara had picked up on the ominous phrasing and made 4 golden light boxes appear encasing his body. His biomech arm exploded, shattering the ice and engulfing Blunt in flames. The eruption burst through all 4
I
of
knew he
Fess's
was gonna
barriers,
die.
but that and the ice was enough to dull the explosion to little more than a light shockwave for the people in the arena. Nobody else was hurt. But Bobby Blunt was no more. The
Yep,
second it
he
was
did.
clear that he was finished, Chanel let her channeled powers leave her and she dropped to the ground, panting. Soon after, she passed out, with Trayton and Freya both jumping to her side. She came to a full day later, leaping up in her bed at home. Carter was there with her and excited to see her awake.
Hey.
He wanted to keep her in bed, but she insisted on him explaining how everything was going while rushing out the door to get back to the exhibition venue. Thankfully,
It's been a
the worst
day.
was long over, and everyone who could was being very helpful and understanding. Plus, their little tournament had become the most talked about event on the planet.
Who wouldn't
On
talk
the way
about
to the
it?
venue, Carter told her what had happened to most of the people involved in the battle with Blunt. A few on-site healers got to Gygar and patched him up as much as they could there in the arena.
Good.
He'd likely have to take a year off to fully recover, but he was going to be just fine. Flamtasius
That's
and
good, at
Wallop had
least.
sustained a few injuries, but weren't going to need more than a couple weeks to fully recover. Obviously, many people had been impressed with how Freya had conducted herself, but Agama Knight was coming out as the real star. He was being lauded as a hero in the news, even by stations that had sponsorships from Avaret, and normally would never praise someone with a naturally bonded
Screw
body.
Avaret.
His message promoting natural bonds was being spread across the entire planet, and agents from the higher Vigilance leagues were calling his dad non-stop. Chanel had hundreds of interview requests pouring in
glorious.
for her too, as her heroic and somewhat mysterious act fascinated people as much as Augie's bold decision to leap into the arena. When she got to the stadium and Kaya and the others asked her about it, all she could really say was, "Whatever that power was, I'm incredibly grateful for it, but I'm also never going to try and channel that power again. Usually it feels like I'm sharing someone else's power. This time it felt more like I stole something important. Besides,
Ironically, you kind of did. By taking all 3 of the Repos of Rings, you, well, unfortunately led to the death of the Repo.
hopefully I never need access to power like that again. Tournament organizing isn't usually that high stakes of a profession. Trayton and his officers had managed to contain Blunt's other biomech arm, and were going to do all they could to trace it back to Avaret. Unfortunately, Blunt hadn't said anything to implicate them in his actions, and he wasn't around anymore to get information out of.
Yeah.
Not that he would have
Question the
snitched on
smoldering
anyone if
ash.
he was still alive. Still, whether they could get charges to stick for hiring Blunt and harvesting Bionites to make their biomechs, there was no way they'd be able to sell the biomechs as a product now.
Oh,
Plus,
of
their
course
profits
not.
on bond bans were guaranteed to start dropping significantly with the splash Augie and his little revolution was making. In spite of everything, Blunt had also done minimal damage to the arena, and the venue owners had stated they had no intention of seeking any damages. There would certainly be people of the criminal world seeking to get their hands on Blunt's tech, but besides that, everything was wrapping up as cleanly as it could for the Unitalia exhibition tournament. People on social
Great
media
luck.
were already requesting updates on when the next year's event would set up pre-sale tickets. Despite the big final doubles match technically not happening, most people talking about the tournament seemed pretty satisfied with the finale fight they'd gotten.
Oh, of
Chanel and Kaya could
course.
have had a ton of work to wrap up the tournament, but tons of people in the Protection Bureau, competitors from the event, and just random citizens were offering their help to get everything finished off and cleaned up. By the end of that day, Kaya, Chanel, Trayton, Carter, and Freya all even got a moment to just sit back and think about how insanely the event had gone.
Sit
Eventually,
back,
a peaceful hush
relax,
fell over them.
And
Then,
chill.
after a few minutes of sitting in exhausted silence, Freya finally said, "So, how are you going to top this next year?" Chanel and Kaya both laughed. Chanel replied, I don't know, even I think that's a pretty tough bar to beat. Freya
I
nodded.
don't think you can.
Well, at least next year you can actually have the big doubles finale you wanted. I'm sure Gygar will be back on his feet in the arena in half the time the doctors are trying to tell him to stay down for. Chanel sat up eagerly.
Yeah, I can
Are
see
you
that.
saying you'd be willing to come back for next year too? Freya nodded. Of course. I mean, if you still want me. Who knows, maybe that Agama kid will kick me out as global champ by then. She chuckled and looked at Trayton. Either way, I think I'm gonna be sticking around Unitalia. Carter's thinking the same thing, right? She said, nodding to him, sat next to Chanel. She turned with her eyes as wide as ever. He smirked. I'll be getting back to work with Eggard Swole soon, but he's cool with me doing my work remotely. And,
Nice.
come on, gorgeous, did you think I'd really be running away from a chance to date the hero of the Unitalia exhibition tournament? I'd never find someone with as much MCE as you. Chanel leapt out of her chair onto Carter and wrapped her arms around him. They certainly hadn't had control over that whole event, but they had made it memorable forever.
I still can't believe Chanel somehow becomes Eloise Ludum in the next life. If a woman like this becomes crazy as all hell in the next life, I just don't see it.
Everyone, and had plans to keep living memorable lives together. During any of the troubling moments of that week, any of those people involved could have gone to hide in a hole and hope that someone else would deal with the problem. But they all knew better. They knew the challenges before them were things they had to at least try and overcome.
They all
and in
fought
the end,
together.
as messy as it was, all of their lives were better for how they handled a difficult set of events. So the next time you face something that seems like a problem, remind yourself that you are the main character of your life, and your
Exactly.
approach to the challenge can ultimately make you and your life better. No matter the situation, you can always step into it vigilantly with plenty of main character energy.
And that's it. Well, folks, I've done it. 17 days, 17 videos, 17 reactions. Well, Fling, I hope that's what you wanted. I finally watched all of Vigilance.
And there you have the season finale of Vigilance. Thank you so much for following this series, whether you're watching it as it was coming out or listening, watching in the distant future. I hugely appreciate
Only
it.
a
and I
year
feel
later.
like so far, this is the most me writing project I've ever made. As I've said in previous episodes, this is going to be released as a book, hopefully within a month of this final episode coming out.
It does
I'm also
come out as
probably
a
going
book.
to compile a proper audiobook since I've already essentially recorded the full audiobook. So an ebook, a print copy with full color images, and hopefully an audiobook will all be released on Amazon, self-published at some point in the next month.
It
I
all
do have
comes
ideas
out.
for Vigilance Season 2, but I'm not going to be jumping into it right away. I have a bunch of other series in mind. I also currently have two
Yeah,
other series going
it takes
right
a
now,
while.
Mytholethal and The Summoner's Beasts. And soon I'm going to be starting another tale set in my multiverse of multiverse tales, revolving around a place called the Trismegistus Academy, which is actually going to have some pretty similar vibes
wonderful.
to Vigilance, but be a bit more outright sci-fi, multiverse, fantasy, superhero kind of stuff happening. A little bit
Oh, yeah.
more high
Love it.
concept, but a lot of similar themes to
And
Vigilance.
Starseed Psyche.
And while it is set in my bigger Multiverse Tales series, I'll make sure that the first episode has a lot of good introduction stuff to make sure you can jump into this series fresh
A lot
if you
of good
haven't watched
hooks.
any of my other stuff in Multiverse Tales before. But anyway, I'll keep you all updated on when the book is going to be released. Thank you so much again. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode of whatever else I'm putting out next. Goodbye.
Alright everyone, and that is going to be the end of today's video, and I hope you all enjoyed this. By the time this video is coming out, Valentine's Day is just 2 days away, so I hope all of you will have a significant other out there, or at least someone you can spend the day with. But until next time, this is Fox, signing out. Peace.